Long ago, before man had barely crawled out of the mud, the dwarves were busy making. To build, to craft, to make something, that's the very essence of being a dwarf. And none knew this more than the Forge Father. Though his original name is lost to time, all dwarves know of his magnum opus, the First Blade, a sword so beautifully crafted that the Forge Father ascended into divinity, for no mere mortal could create such perfection. Or that's how the story goes, at least. But you can see why it's so important that I recover this. The Brothers of the Forge, they sent me out to find the First Blade, and we finally have our first tangible lead to where it could be. Hurek said as him and Bertram continued to forage more. I think that after all the excitement with the cave and the ambush and Calloway and finding Linnea's mother, the four of them left the cave and noticed that there's probably just enough sunlight for them to set up camp and to forage for a bit. They're going to desperately need food to feed the four of them, so we'll see if we can do that. Loudmouth is at the camp with Linnea's mother, Rose, so it's just Bertram and Hurek out here foraging. Once we get back to the town, Hurek, we're gonna need to renegotiate our deal. I wasn't told we'd be on the tail of a magic item, and now knowing that Calloway's wrapped up with this, that it was stolen, that it's gonna be a lot more dangerous than just taking you to the human capital. I think Hurek is going to give the halfling a grumpy side-eye and nod. This is not the place to talk about business. We're still kind of in survival mode out here. So let's bring up the dice, and we're going to have Hurek make a survival roll, but I'm going to have Bertram help him, so that'll be using the help action. So we will just get 2 d20s, and his survival is 2. So we're going to want, I'll say at least a DC 13 to get enough food for them to have tonight. So we will make that throw. Well, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. A nat 1 and a nat 20. But yeah, with that 20 on the die, I am going to rule that they get enough food for, let's just say, 2 nights. Yeah, I think that they came across a very plentiful berry bush, and there were some edible mushrooms. Since Linnea's mother also worked at the apothecary, she could probably double check to make sure they're all good. But with a roll that good, I'm not gonna have them get taken out by poison. With their spoils from the berry bush, they head back to camp. I think as they head back, they see Linnea's mother, Rose, kind of tending to Loudmouth. He got banged up a bit, they all did, but being front line, he got banged up a bit. So I think she's bandaging him up and kind of scolding him a bit too. She looks over the berries and mushrooms, and with that nat 20, they're definitely all good. So she nods, and she looks over the other two. Just want to make sure that you three are all right. There's a lot of cuts and bruises, but as long as you keep them clean, it should be all right. I was a bit curious, though, she says. That man, Calloway, that was keeping me held hostage, he had a very unusual burn on him. I think with that, Hurek will kind of tense up a bit, and Bertram will look at him out of curiosity, because that burn seemed to enable Calloway to use magic. And magic's pretty rare. Ever since the Day of the Leaves and all of the elves, turned into trees, there hasn't been a whole lot of naturally occurring magic. Hurek sighed. Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. You get burned that way by being rejected by the First Blade. Rejected? What does that mean? The First Blade is a sentient magic item, and it's picky about who wields it. It hasn't been wielded in quite a long time, and I can surmise that Calloway gentleman tried to wield it, and the blade didn't like it, so it branded him as someone who was rejected. That still doesn't answer the question about how he was able to use magic. That's rather odd. I think Keurig kind of, he puts his hand on his temples and he rubs them. He's very tired, and explaining all of this, basically speculation's kind of making him even more tired, I think. The rejection burn is more or less magic in itself, so the best I can surmise that Calloway gentleman had some latent talent, some potential to be magic, and the burn awoken it. Well, regardless of how or why he got it, Linnea's mother began. It seemed to cause him a great deal of pain. Even though he did capture me, I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for him. Sorry for a man that kidnapped you. You're definitely nicer than most, Miss Rose. So I think with that, they're going to settle down, and we'll do, we'll sign watches and do all of that. All right, first watch, we'll start with our boy Loudmouth. He's going to make a perception roll, and he gets a +2 to that. So here we go. Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's an 18. He doesn't hear anything. All's quiet aside from the crackling of the fire and the snoring of the dwarf. Since he rolled so well, I won't roll the percentile on him. Alright, next up is Hurek. I think Loudmouth wakes him up, jostles him awake, and it's time for his turn to watch. So we will roll the d20. It's a +2. Ooh, it's a 5. Okay. So we're going to roll the percentile dice to see how likely it is that we get attacked that night. So if he gets... Here's a pretty bad roll. So let's say 85 or higher, he will... there will be a monster or encounter of some sort. 58. Okay, so nothing on his end. Very, very lucky, Mr. Hurek. Oh, I should say, by the way, since we're kind of more or less towards the tail end of this particular adventure, after the last video, our heroes leveled up. They're all level 3. Loudmouth is going to be a battle master. That is the archetype I chose for him. And Bertram is a thief rogue. So they get all sorts of nice things. I won't tell you guys what they are. But everyone's leveled up. They're a little bit tougher. Here's got a little bit more magic. So very excited. But yes, last but not least, it's Bertram's turn for the watch. So let's roll him up. Clear. He just gets a straight d20 because he does not have any bonuses to perception. So let's throw him. Ooh, a 3. Ooh. Okay. All right, so let's clear that out, and we'll do another d10. Let's increase this to 70 or higher now. Okay, so 33. No encounter tonight, so that is good. Our heroes and Linnea's mom all rest peacefully throughout the night. The morning light invigorated the group as they left the forest. The mist danced past their feet in swirling patterns along the road as it was burned up by the sun. Miss Rose, despite her age and being captive for several days, was able to walk briskly beside the group, and as they entered the village proper, she ran at breakneck speed to the arms of her daughter. The two embraced and wept. The gratitude they felt seeing each other again was immeasurable. Linnea looks up away from her mother and at the three. Tears are streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. They threatened her. They threatened me. I sent you to your death and you saved her anyways. I'll always be in your debt. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hurik is then going to walk over to Linnea and put a hand on her arm. Dry your eyes, girl. What you did for family. I can't fault you for that. I'm glad that it was us that found her, not someone else. I think Bertram was a little bristled at that statement from Hurik. The halfling didn't really like being tricked like that, but it wasn't worth the argument right here in the middle of the village square. Linnea then dried her eyes, and she had a look of determination come across her face. Well, I wasn't lying about my cousin. He will be able to take you across the river. I promise you won't have to pay a single copper piece to get across. But please, stay at our house tonight. There's more than enough room. More than enough to eat. Please, I insist. Well, so long as it won't be any trouble. And I think Linnea laughed. Trouble? You saved my mother. Nothing you could do would cause me any trouble now. So Linnea and Rose walk hand in hand back to their home, and our three heroes walk behind them. As they all entered Linnea and Rose's house, they were immediately hit by the smell of several different herbs drying, medicines being made. It was quite a complex mix of smells, kind of like how this adventure had been very complex. Somewhat bitter, but towards the end, ultimately good. Hurik went on to inform Linnea that Calloway and his men wouldn't be bothering her again. You've done so much good for this village. If that man had managed to build up strength and actually try to do real harm here, I don't want to think what could have happened. She then looked over to her mother. Mother, can I go upstairs and get them father's box? Rose smiled and nodded. I mean, it's not doing much more than collecting dust up there. They'd probably be able to find some use for it. As Linnea went upstairs to gather whatever it is she wanted to gather, Rose explained that her late husband used to adventure around quite a bit in his younger days, before he died. And he gathered quite a few interesting items during his travels. If there was anything he had in there that could be of use, they wanted the group to have it. And before too long, Linnea came downstairs hefting a rather large chest. She about took a tumble, but Loudmouth caught her. A slight blush went across her face as he did so. Oh, thank you, good sir. I don't think I ever caught your name. Oh, don't worry about him. That's just Loudmouth. Loudmouth? That's your name? More like that's the name that we gave him. He unfortunately has lost his memory and is without a tongue, so he can't tell us what his real name is. And so you give him a name steeped in irony. That sounds like a halfling joke if I ever heard one, Linnea said as she looked over at Bertram, who was just whistling away. Well, good Sir Loudmouth, it doesn't matter what your name is. Your actions speak far louder than what your mouth could say. But before we get too carried away, please look through my father's chest, see if there's anything that could be of use to you. And what this will mean mechanically is we're going to roll on a D100 magic item table. And we get what we get, and we don't get upset. Alright, first things first, we're going to bring up our dice. Then we're going to do D100. And we'll roll it up. So that's a 15. So a 15 is... Okay. I think Loudmouth will reach into the chest, and he will... There's not a whole lot in there, like just some baubles, broken compass, notes about where Linnea's father went. But in the corner of the chest, there appears to be a very dry sponge. Linnea's mother just looks slightly annoyed. Oh, I wish he threw that old thing out. Linnea's mother went on to explain that it was a sponge capable of absorbing an abnormal amount of liquid. If thrown into a body of water, it could soak up a good-sized lake. It never grows any larger or heavier, no matter how much liquid it holds. A single squeeze will always release the whole volume at once. So, one of these types of items that could be very deadly in the right person's hands. So I'm glad we got it. Just be careful with it. You could damage a lot of the ecosystem if you're not careful, Linnea's mother went on to explain. So I think after that, they spent the rest of the day just kind of resting. They ate, they slept. Tomorrow, they were going to visit Linnea's cousin and get much needed passage across the river. On that high note, we'll end it off for today's episode. I apologize for a bit of a shorter one, but I think this kind of wrapped everything off quite nicely for this first little arc of the story. Our characters, our heroes, getting closer to their goal. We made friends, we made an enemy. Who knows what could happen as we get closer to the human capital. But if you enjoy this type of content, please consider giving me a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on X. I've been playing through Monster and Maze's Hexplore 24. It's a very fun exploration game where 1 day of game time equals 1 day of actual time in reality. I'm really having a lot of fun interacting with all you guys, getting really good feedback. I hope to continue pushing myself as we go into this new year. So I can't wait to see you all again, and as always, may all your adventures, whether shared or solo, be epic.